Hello, everybody. This is your captain speaking. Rafael Chacín no es el Capitan Rafucho, and welcome to the adventure. And right now, this is a special adventure for me because right now I'm not alone. Because right now I'm here with the one and only Zion Zenith. Because this right here, we're gonna talk everything about the UFC right now. Because let's get it, folks. So, how's it going, Zion? Because this is a perfect opportunity to talk everything about the mission martial arts, the UFC, everything. So, how's it going this Wednesday afternoon, evening?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's going wonderful, my friend. Thank you for coming up with this idea where we get together and we talk UFC and bringing me on your program. Thank you so much. And of course, you're letting me stream it to my audience as well. So that's always a blessing. Make sure you guys go check out Rafael. It's down in the description below. And thank you for people for being with us. We got Daniel in the house, so we appreciate you. Thank you for being us. But we got a lot of events that just took place. A lot of events to get to. I know we got the Jotin Omagna versus Lewis fight coming up. We got the Joey Pahakovic versus Alex fight coming up. It's Sergey Pahakovic and Tom Aspinall. I slaughtered Polar Bear's name there, but Tom Aspinall, that's coming up too. And then we got a lot of other fights coming up too. So I'm excited to be here and let's get it going.
All right, so let's go for the quick recap because right now, because the last week, which is over the last week, we just saw for this event right now, which is Makabech versus Volkanovski, number 2, Usman versus Chimaev. Now, the last time that I was streaming about this event, I was at the bar because I was surprised that it became like a lot of change right now. Because at the beginning, they just start with Makabech versus Charles Rivera for the rematch at about the title, but then they changed it up with Alexander Volkanovski versus Aslan Makabech, and then not only they just changed it up for Usman Chimaev because originally they had Paulo Costa versus Chimaev, which is unbelievable. But right now it's like a change of plans right now. But it seems that that fight it became a lot of intensity, aggression. But I guarantee you, for everybody, Islam Makhachev is unbeatable, and he knows whether to go to the best pound by pound because it reminds me that Kabir Nurmagomedov do. Because every time that we see Kabir out of the octagon right now, it seems that he's unbeatable. But now he's gonna need to the steps right now for Islam Makhachev, and everything could happen like this one. I mean, Alexander Volkanovski was totally great, but he was just like they came out short with a knockout. They just banned each other. But I mean, Aslan Makhachev was truly unbeatable. So, any thoughts about for the fight between Aslan Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski? I mean, that fight was tremendously right, and they have it a knockout. But I think they had a lot of change of plans because I was really interested about the Charles Rivera rematch against Makhachev.
Absolutely, you couldn't have said it more perfectly. Great match. I was excited to see Oliver's rematch as well. But what I thought from this match is kind of what I felt like. Not trying to make any excuses, but as a fan of this sport for a long time, as a hardcore mixed martial arts watcher of the UFC, I looked at it takes me back when TJ Dillashaw fought Henry Cejudo. I don't know why that was so hard for me. Henry Cejudo.
Yeah.
Reason being is because TJ at Reigns, he mentally looked drained. He mentally looked stripped. He mentally looked like it wouldn't be possible for 24 hours for him to rejuvenate all of that energy that he just lost pursuing the weight cut. That being said, when you look at what Alex looked at on the scale day of Reigns, these fighters take so much out of their body. They basically killing themselves to get down the weigh-in at a certain weight. In this case, it was 155. And when you looked at him the day before the fight, he just looked absolutely drained, absolutely no shot at it kind of reminded me of that day. So I wasn't really surprised when I have to be completely honest with you. I wasn't really surprised when Islam went out there and caught him with that head kick and knocked him out because I think weight cutting. I don't like it. Number one, because it's, these guys are stepping in the octagon at like 160, 170, 180 when they're fighting at 155. All they need to do is weigh in at 155 and then they can fight at whatever weight whatever weight they want to rehydrate at, as much weight as they can put on before the fight. I'm a fan of what Joe Rogan says, he's like fighters walking around fighting at their weight because of the fact that they're not killing themselves. And when you look at fighters killing themselves to get done down to it was an 11-day notice, so he wasn't in the top tier shape. It's like a football player in the summertime saying, "Hey, can you go play for a football game right now, like off the couch?" That is just kind of hard. Even though they're in shape, it's a difference being in shape and being in football shape. Same difference of being in shape and being in fighting shape. So Islam definitely salutes to him for getting the knockout. Going to the Usman fight versus Chamaya, absolutely
Yeah,
phenomenal a performance by Chamaya, man. He's deservedly so ready to take on a top contender. I know Sean Strickland wasn't too happy about him calling, being that he wasn't a ranked opponent. But here's the thing: this guy's undefeated. This guy basically just beat Gilbert. He just beat Usman. He is top of the cream of the crop when it comes down to the welterweights. So if Sean Strickland is willing to give him a title shot, which I think he should, I'll love to see. And plus, two, the backstory behind that is they used to train with one another. So I'm excited to see how that one goes. I'm sorry for that long-winded answer, but there you go. That's my recap on that event.
yeah, that's exactly because Alexander Volkanovski was like everything is under control right now, but I see that he was surprisingly about the grappling, of submission of the fights because I know that he was like a rugby player, but he understood about it, the precision, the punches, and the grappling. I would go to decision. But in the case of Islam Makhachev, he needs some new challenges right now because they're really the concept of rematches and he was craving like in a new competition ahead for the playing a rematch against Charles Oliveira because it's just like an appetite that was likely to satisfy to he pivot to the second consecutive fight that he just filmed at the same thing that the last year because when it comes to Dubai, he was the same training center. There nothing changed because he needs some new challenge and he cannot rim some new guy, new city, new country. And he was just president decide to challenge it about the welterweight title. And he was just like an attitude about the facing of Oliveira or maybe Justin Gaethje, but they only are the most likely challenger because he lasted to serve like the next title shot. And don't be surprised that Islam Makhachev is coming at every kind of the title right now because he's unbeatable. And for Alexander Volkanovski, he had a great fight, but he needs to understand it about because I know that he's a rugby player, but he needs to understand that what's the desire to to put in out for a great challenge and of course putting out for everything. And for that fight, it's gonna be like a bigger question because it's not gonna be issues was segregated in Abu Dhabi. I mean it Ivar Rebel having to go for this one and it could be like a really excited to see the fight right now, but it seems that Alexander Volkanovski can do like everything could have better. But I think this year is gonna be like Islam Makhachev to become one of the most incredible fighters by pound, and I think this is gonna be deserve like a title shot. And Alexander Volkanovski, the desire to be like a double champ. I mean, it's really complicated, but I wanted to see like over the next few events that we talking about it. But I think this is gonna be like a really interesting. And of course, since we're gonna talk about the UFC right now, it is time for like a preview is gonna be like a happen. Almeida versus Lewis. You know that Derek Lewis, it is gonna be at Sao Paulo, Brazil, which is closer to my country that I was born in, Venezuela, which is closer to Colombia. I mean, that fight is gonna be like happening in this one. And for me, between Derek Lewis versus Almeida, I mean, it's gonna happen like they have a great spark and the headliner right now. I mean, they're gonna have it like this plans how to adapt to go for everything. I mean, they're gonna have it like this could be close. And before for the fight, he was under arrested, but he was like allegedly like over a speed limit. But he doesn't have it to go to a fatty to go to Sao Paulo to go to the main event against Almeida. But let's see how that'll go for it because there's a little watch right now, primarily the Gelton Almeida. I mean, Gelton Almeida, he's from Brazil, but I mean, he got a lot of great things that go for it. he's already had to go from. Now he's gonna chase him more because Derek Lewis, he's a master of knockout because he's gonna chase it a lot of things more because he's gonna return for the Sao Paulo for the first time in nearly 4 years. And Almeida has 3-0 since he moved out to the heavyweight division in May of 2022. And he earned like all the 19 career victories by stoppage. And he just absorbed two significant strikes in the fight for career. But with Derrick Lewis, you got to be careful about it because he's the master of knockout because his team, like the ground strikes in competition, are tied up with Cain Velasquez of the company history. And he earned like a bonuses at the heavyweight boss or the title for Stephen Struve. I mean, what can I say about it? This is like gonna be like an important fight to be who's gonna be on summation, knockout. I mean, Gelton Amira, you gotta be careful about Derek Lewis because what I told it, he's the master of knockout and he understands what the better are the grappling, the summation, everything. So any thoughts about Derek Lewis versus Gelton Almeida in Sao Paulo, Brazil?
Yeah, absolutely. Well put together. Well said, Rafael. Absolutely salute to you, G Nation. Thank you so much for being here, man, my friend. That being said, we got this man, Derek Lewis, veteran in the game. Obviously he did his thing. He showed up. He was staying in the top five, the top eight of the heavyweight division for a really long time, and that's hard saying something. The UFC is a really tough sport to be in there, and for Derek Lewis to be always fighting a top 15 competition has been absolutely amazing for his career, and it just seems that he's on the down end of his career. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we got Jolton Omega. I'm totally slaughtering his name, but this guy is on like a 12 fight win streak. Just beating Rojan Strickland in the submission. It was a good naked choke. Before that, he had a TKO. He is now, I believe, 5-0 in the UFC. 6-0 if you count a contender series. His last fight ended in a rear naked choke, like I said, a TKO. He fought Alton to another submission. He fought Porker to a submission. He fought Danilo to a TKO, submission, TKO, submission, TKO, TKO, submission, TKO. So this guy is undefeated, never been to a decision since 2018. So Derek Lewis, you're in it for a tough night. You're probably going to get demolished. It's probably going to be stopped early.
Yeah.
Nothing against Derek Lewis, but you're an aged veteran. That UFC veterans doesn't age. Sign with Bellator because I'm not trying to be a dick here, but I'm sorry, Derek Lewis. I'm a fan of the Black Beast, but your comedy on Instagram has been absolutely amazing to watch. And you should become a comedian right now because I'm not saying that to be a dick. I'm just saying it because if they're going to start to feed you the heavyweights this day and age, these are a different breed of heavyweights. These heavyweights, don't play around with these heavyweights. This day and age is just different. Sorry, Derek Lewis will always be a fan, UFC heavyweight legend. I would say he's a legend in the heavyweight division, but his time is up, Rafael. His time is up. Jolton is going to beat him in the first round. Easily. I'm going to put money on
I think this is going to I think it's gonna be like a different task to be because what I saw like Derek Lewis, I mean he became like the master and became like a great teacher to how with the knockouts. But I mean you gotta be careful about that because I know that Gelton Amira, he's very interested about the grappling, also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I think it's got the certainly moves right now because all those Brazilian MMA fighters, they know for exactly one thing, which is the jiu-jitsu, the capoeira. I mean, they got the flats and the moves, but when it comes with a flying knee, like Johnny Walker did, and of course, they just have these are gladiators. But one of the different tasks for Gelton Amira is how to get to the beat of Derek Lewis because he understands better the art of knockout, grappling. I mean, the punches. I mean, he just went a pound by pound, and I was getting interested because right now he's getting interested in more like a title shot. Because as Almeida and Lewis have the foreign competition right now, I mean,
that's I'm not to interrupt you, but
I mean,
that's
he
why I'm
lost
looking
the
at this fight. I'm like, nothing against Derek Lewis, but Jolton clearly beats him on the feet, can clearly beat him in the clinch, can clearly beat him on the ground, can clearly wrestle him. That's just in my mind. Now, Derek Lewis, he might have better wrestling. I might outspoke there. I might give Derek Lewis the wrestling. But when it comes to the ground game and the BJJ, I think Jolton's better than Derek Lewis. And when it comes to the striking, as good as Derek Lewis is with those hands, that can only work against not the tail at the top. Jolton is looking like the cream of the crop here, especially with all these other heavyweights that we would need to talk about. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just had to say that. So when I say I don't want to sound like a unintelligent fan when I say that Jolton is gonna beat him in the first round, fam. That's watching and people that watch this after the fact. I'm just saying this as like a hardcore that clearly sees this is the UFC just feeding Derek Lewis to Jolton to kind of boost Jolton's um, stock. But at the end of the day, Derek Lewis could clearly come in and knock Jolton out in that blow because any punch can land. We all seen that before. And that being said, clearly still that. Oh, you thought you next for the title? Well, let me steal that. And Derek Lewis, the Black Beast's show is still there. So sorry to interrupt you, Rafael. I'll let you go.
Yeah, but because I just run into everybody because between Jelton Almeida versus Derek Lewis, because I know this, he was rounded in Lewis by professional mixed martial arts, and he combines like the victories and between Sergio Spivak, Sergio Pavlovic, also Sergio Gain. I mean, he was graduated as a Dana White Contender Series, but he was like he lasted the pair for the UFC on ABC 4. But I think this is gonna be like a really exciting because Jito Amira, he must pick up potential threats at one at a time if he wants to reach at the top of the Ultimate Fighting heavyweight picking order, and he wants to go like this is like the biggest test against Derek Lewis. So right now it's gonna be like a really interesting fight. So right now let's go for the another topic. So I just figured it out because I'm gonna share the screen right now because I really thought this is gonna be like it really happen right now, and this is gonna be like going on to this one. All right, so all right, there you go, and then now you guys probably know all about it because what happened to the poster right now? Because right now it is Jiri Prochazka versus Alice Pereira, ladies and gentlemen, because it's not gonna be John Bon Jones versus Steve Miocic. And I understand that John Bon Jones is gonna be like his last match before his retirement career, possibly, or Stephen Miocic. But right now, it's gonna be Prochazka versus Pereira. It's gonna be at the vacant light heavyweight title. It's gonna be announced at last week. It is gonna be on New York City. Now, for Jiri Prochazka, it got a battle between a new heavyweight champion because that Sergio Prochazka returned to the action after he captured the light heavyweight title in the war with Glover Teixeira, all the debate had to win ahead for the scheduled rematch after the suffer a serious injury. Now he's gonna compete it again, and he seems that he wants to reclaim the belt that he never lost with the dedication of another former champion. And for Pereira, who previously held the middleweight title, he missed the second appearance after having a father being Jan Malkovich with his light heavyweight debut in just like a 7 UFC fight. And he seems that at the single second division after he faced a Prochazka in November. And he's gonna be like the headliner of this event. It is not gonna be John Jones versus Steve Miocic. It's gonna be Jiri Prochazka versus Alice Pereira. And I know it's gonna be like a deja vu for everything because after we just saw Chelsea Rivera versus Islam Makovich, but they had Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makovich. Now they just had Prochazka versus Pereira instead of John Jones versus Steve Miocic. Now, everything that about thoughts about that fight, it could be like everything could happen on Saturday, November 11th in New York City about Prochazka versus Pereira. Warrior versus Samurai.
Yeah, I mean, like I absolutely love Yuri. Respect. What's up, Holly? Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hey, Holly.
Absolutely. Absolutely love Yuri. He is definitely one I've been watching for a long time. Ever since Fighters Island was announced and they went to Abu Dhabi, he's a fighter that was on an amazing win streak. And actually, the UFC came to him a couple of times throughout the early years, and he basically told Dana White that he's not ready to fight for the UFC. When he is ready, he'll let Dana White know. When they came to Fighters Island, he finally was ready. If he let Dana White know, he got himself into the cage. I believe it was on a one fight contract. He clearly whooped that guy's ass, and the rest is history. He became the title holder, what I would say, the true light heavyweight champion. And what ended up happening is he had to, sit out to injury. But that being said, he is back. He is fighting Alex for the championship, and I believe that he takes it back. I believe he takes his championship back, and we get a Yuri versus um Jamar Hill, because Jamar Hill, as much as I respect him, Jamal Hill is not the true champion either. Yuri is the true champion. Yuri got hurt first and then relinquished his championship. And then Jamal Hill won that championship that was relinquished. And then Jamal Hill got hurt and then relinquished his championship. And then the pages now were written. But that being said, shout out to Jamal Hill. Hopefully he's healing. He is the lightweight champion, light heavyweight champion of the world. We can't deny that. I want to see Yuri get his championship back, and then we can get the real light heavyweight championship fight between Yuri and Jamal Hill. That's what the fans want to see, because that truly determines who's the best light heavyweight. I don't think Alex has what it takes at this point in his career to take on a challenge like Yuri. As much as I love Alex, as much as I, you know, um, I picked him over Izzy in fight number one. I kind of thought Brawley was gonna give him more of a better fight, but Bohakovic kind of surprised me in that one. But that being said, Alex clearly won that fight. Alex clearly deserved this title shot, and I'm not gonna take and granted on what he brings from the game of boxing and kickboxing. I'm sorry, kickboxing. But I just think that Yuri is a better fighter. So it's gonna be a tough fight. It's gonna be a pick'em fight, but I'm gonna pick Yuri. I really am, because I think Yuri is gonna be the all around better fighter, and I'm been a fan of him since he entered the UFC. So I'm gonna pick him.
Yeah, and I think this is gonna be like a really tight because it won't be close, but I think a jury Prasad kind of mean that it doesn't mean he's gonna be like it. Definitely, he's gonna take the W, but it should be
Mhm.
really, really excited because Alice Pereira hits really hard, but Jimmy has shown incredible resilience to not to get finished because he had like an up kick from Reyes to the knockout for the slip second, and he recovered immediately and transferred for the side control, and we never seen it about it. And not to mention that Jimmy A match shots at the Terra Glover, and he also incredible knockout power because I feel like pressure of Gili or Wildness will be too much. He definitely has to go for the advantage of the ground too. Because if Alice Pereira has in the more few years at the Spirits, it might go with him because at stance of the Jew, it seems like they had the tools and the wherewithal to get it done. I mean, Jiri has been hard by Reyes and Glover, but Pereira's gonna be flattening with him. It's not gonna be easy. But I will tell you this: Jiri has the power after the go for it. That's the grappling, and we shocked about it. But I think it's gonna be like really short about the grappling style of Jiri. But I think it's gonna be wearing destroyed, and he's struggling to hold him down any midly, and the fight is gonna descend on the feet. But I think it's gonna be like a so hittable, but I'm gonna be able to choose with Jiri. But it's not gonna be easy at all. But it takes a lot of pressure to go for the grappling style. And of course, we got something to about this song right now. So let's see for the comments right now. So let's see. Dana Berry Sports Highlights, how's it going? Also, we got G Nation Inside Sports, how's it going? Make sure to subscribe to G Nation Inside Sports because not only provides the call-ins for some NFL games, including the Giants, but also for the live streaming the MMA and boxing called Letter to the Face. Also, we got Holly in the building. How's it going? Holly, Daniel, salute. And of course, to say thank you. Holly to say, do you know when Jones is gonna fight again? Well, I'm not very sure about that, but
Yeah,
I
so
think it's
he
gonna be
did
before.
tear his he tore his tendon off the bone. So he's gonna
Yeah.
need surgery, and that's gonna be about 8 months. So we're probably not gonna see John Jones until I would say July, summertime, if not pushed back until November of next year. Like I don't think John Jones is, I think it's gonna be a long recovery for him. And you gotta think in mind too, John Jones is not as old as he used to be. Also too, I believe it's he's still fighting, but Derek Lewis recently got arrested last Wednesday for reckless driving, accused of reckless driving. So he is, he's charged with a misdemeanor, but he's still probably going to make the fight there. So just a little bit of news on that as well.
Yeah,
Nothing
that's
too crazy.
exactly. Yeah, that's too
One
crazy.
thing
But
before we move on that we kind of didn't touch on that I wanted to go on just a little 30 seconds, not 30 minute. I'm not gonna take up that much time, but 30-second roundabout is Gabriel Bonfam. Now the Bonfam brothers they made an appearance, I believe, a couple of years ago. Is that been that long? Well, Gabriel, I believe, he's fighting in the co-main event against Nicholas Dobie, and that's going to be a firefight. This guy's 15-0. Nicholas Derby is 22-4. That's going to take place the co-main event. I believe that's going to be this Saturday, November 4th. So make sure you guys go check that out. And then, of course, we just touched on the main event of that one. That is Jolton versus Derek Lewis. So Derek Lewis should still be fighting in that fight. But I know you probably wanted to move on to Sergey Parker. I don't know. I'm going to try to slaughter that last name and the Tom Aspinall fight.
yeah, and of course, I'm speaking about of John John because it's gonna wait until like
Appreciate
8 months
that,
to get recovered, and of course, not only John Blanc Jones is gonna be expected to return after the next year, but also there is another MMA fighter that you might know about it because everybody is trending on the news and about like that. But I think it's gonna be scheduled at the UFC number 300, which is tentatively scheduled for April. And one of those fighters is gonna make a return appearance after the after he's doing like in 2021. We're talking about the notorious, the man who came like to change to the whole generation at the decade of 2010 at the UFC. And we're talking about the notorious Conor McGregor. And he will say he will hopefully return on April, which is originally at the event of UFC number 300. And I think it's gonna be targeted return at the Octagon on April. But honestly, at the point, if it's coming in sharp right now, this is gonna be like a shocking return. But it's not gonna be like it might be ready, but it's gonna be like in a massive venues plus for the training camp. And I mean, people still missing about the Conor McGregor because he's one of those fighters who changed a lot of the generation of the UFC that he won as a double champion, and he has other fights with against Nate Diaz, Kevin McDoom, and of course he was like another chapter. But give me any thoughts about what can possibly get Conor McGregor possibly return to the octagon, especially when it comes to UFC number 300, which is especially at the month of April.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love that target. That target is that UFC 300. We all know that UFC 100 was a big event. UFC 200 topped that event, and UFC 300 is going to be the 300. Every 100 they do something big. I love that timetable for Conor because we all know what happened with USADA. We're not going to get into that here, but Conor coming back and that's just going to be big for the sport. He is I like to say all this time, like, we put a lot of people in the GOAT category, but for me as a UFC fan, I like to switch it. I like to call it like, we have the best promoters of the sport, we have the best fighters of the sport, we have the Mount Rushmore of the sport, and Conor McGregor is kind of like in that. He's not one of the best fighters to ever do that, but he deserves as to take the sport to the next level. He is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of the sport because what him and a lot of other fighters did to move the sport to the next level, if it wasn't for Conor McGregor, there wouldn't be a lot of other fighters just being able to take the mic and say what they want to say. Conor was really the first fighter outside. I mean, like, there's a handful, but at the end of the day, Conor really took the marketing of the UFC for the next level. So he will always be respected for that. And if he is going to fight Michael Chandler, that is going to be a fire fight. My question is, who is going to be also on that fight? Is he going to be the main event, or is there going to be other fighters on that fight that trumps him? Because we all know that the UFC tends to do it if the highest weight class gets the gets
Yep.
the main event. So I'm excited for that to see how that pans out. I do have a venue that I am kind of hinting that it might be at. I know the UFC, they like the Las Vegas, they like the fight capital of the world. So why not do it at the MSG Sphere that just got created? Dana White said that he is
Oh,
eyeing on doing that. And I would say that would be like a good event that gives the UFC, now people that, I'm not gonna get too in detail, but people that know the MSG Sphere in Las Vegas, it takes about 6 months to a year to kind of like plan out your event. Doing that, they have to use certain cameras and stuff. So I can see the UFC and Dana White, being that they want to probably have it in um, the Las Vegas, doing it at the Sphere. And if it's not in Las Vegas, it's probably going to be in Saudi Arabia, or it's probably going to be in Abu Dhabi. I can see both of those places being candidates for the fight, but UFC 300 will probably take place. I would say, if I had to guess, they're going to do it at the MSG Sphere for a venue. That's just my bold prediction.
hmm yeah, that's right. And of course, and what are those fights? Because it's not only about Jiri Prosacho, but it's Alice Pereira that's coming to the
Appreciate
title.
that,
But
Dirk.
yeah, Zarek, pretty good. All right, so the next is gonna be like a really excited. It's gonna be Pavlovich versus Aspinall for the interim heavyweight title bout. Now, this is gonna be like an interim title fight, and it's gonna be like the most dangerous guy Siri published on short notice. Because Thomas Pinal, he knew that something big with this moment that he received like a phone call is one of the highest up at the UFC. Because he got an off of the night call and it's not exactly Aspinall dread up, but this is like the golden opportunity that the British stand up has desired ever since joining up the UFC in July 2020. And since then, has been looking at the tier with 6-1, with 6 finishes. He only defeated a freak accident. He blew it out his knee between Curtis Blaze. And I think that I think it is the most fight that we ever talk because Pavlovich versus Apinol, I mean, it's gonna be like the most dangerous guy because they have the most dangerous situation they're gonna have because fighting in 2 weeks' notice, but they gotta pull it off of the line because he's gonna be like a dedicated guy, and he's gonna be like a all right, so this is gonna be like a really go at it because I know it's gonna be like a in some MMA fighters it's gonna happen like this one. For me, it's gonna depend for the grappling style. The grappling style because we just have it the more decided fight is gonna be tough to cope. But I think that Aspinall for me is gonna be like a in short notice. He should be focusing on the submissions. It's gonna be like a stand war between. Now we did see the more success with the ground the pound, but apparently Pavlovich has a very interesting background on Sambo and Greco-Roman wrestling. So he might know how to the hard to take down. And I know that he finished him well with the ground and pound, but if he ever hit the Messi, they can check it out. He will find the sneaky ways to win it. He gradually had is respected. But one I mentioned about the Pavlovich was the backup fighter for that title. He's been in the camp and prepared for the potentially had to fight. And Aspinall is getting a bit too short to restart with the preparation. But preparing to fight out with any competing, but he has a crazy power and crazy striking. And he finished is Aspinall doesn't take to the ground for the most of the fight. So any thoughts about who's gonna be like the fight between Pavlovich versus Aspinall? I mean for the entire heavyweight championship for in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is exactly what I was talking about when I said Derek Lewis just retire and become a comedian. Because at this point, I think the heavyweights, we just got done talking about Jolton, and then now we're about to talk about Sergey and Tom Aspinall. These guys coming up. We didn't even mention Polar Bear. I know Polar Bear just got beaten, but still, these guys, and we guys still gone. So these guys coming up are just on another level, and I just want to start here. Sergey is absolutely stud. I mean, like, let's just look at this. Curtis Blades, TKO. Tad Tuivasa, TKO. Derek Lewis, TKO. Shamil, I'm not even going to try to slaughter that guy's last name. TKO. Morcine Green, TKO. Golem, TKO. So this guy basically came in. His last loss was against All-Star Overeem, but after that, he just teared up. This guy basically hasn't gotten to a decision until Last time he got to a decision was November 16th in 2016. Okay, that's the last time this guy went to a decision. Now he's going to be fighting Tom Aspinall. Looking on here on Wikipedia, where I'm getting my information off, I'm not on Tapology. Shout outs to them. But this guy literally just lost to Curtis Blades, and I do remember watching all these fights. But before that, he was on the streak. I believe him. He beat in Polar Bear. He beat Alexander. But that being said, he beat Andre Arlovsky as well. But that being said, I think Sergey is just a better fighter here. Now he did get caught. Tom did get caught against Curtis Blades, and it was in round one. It was like 15 seconds into that fight. But at the end of the day, he did come and redeem that by knocking out Tabora. So that being said, Sergey is just right now on a rampage, and it's hard to really pick against him. I even think if Derek Lewis was to fight Tom Aspinall right now, Derek Lewis will lose. So I just think on that. Tom is the better fighter, but I think Sergey is just one level above him. So that being said, I'm gonna have to say Sergey beats Tom here. It is gonna be a close fight. I know a lot of people might think that they might come out and knock each other out early in the first round, and that could easily happen. But I don't see that going like that. I see it being more like a Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou fight, where they both respect each other's fighter power. And Rafael said, they're gonna have to implement the ground game because at the end of the day, they could stay striking, but it's gonna be a slow paced fight. Unless one of them really goes out there and starts swinging for the fences and gets that knockout. And if that is gonna be that person that does that, that will probably be Tom. Tom will probably be able to go out there and rush in, but will Sergey get Tom counter strike? So if Sergey wins this fight, it's probably going to be a counter strike because Tom's probably going to be the more aggressive fighter here. But I still think that it's going to be a slower fight, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's exactly. And of course, when it comes to grappling style, and of course for the knockouts, I mean, this is gonna be like a little hard to explain because these are the most dangerous guys at UFC. But when it comes to grappling and of course the knockout style, it all depends which fight is gonna happen. Like this one and the another one, and I think this is gonna be the most interesting fight to watch at the UFC 294 because I know it's gonna be like in New York City because a few years ago that was in 2016 when they had to go to the first time to UFC bring up back the New York City after there being like the probation and everything. But I think this is like the best opportunity to make it to the seat at the Madison Square Garden. But I know that some of the UFC fights on pay per view they're just laying it out for Las Vegas, California, and New York. But I think it's going to more like international to go to Brazil, England, also to go to Ireland, Australia, Japan, China, Shanghai. I mean, they're gonna have it because they're spending it like at a great fight, and of course to impulse all these young prospect fighters that they can do the good fight. And of course, if we see like Dana White Contender Series, there's gonna be like the bright future of the generation of UFC. Because if you see like the reality show, The Ultimate Fighter that we just saw on Spike, and now the Dana White Contender Series, man, this is gonna be like the bright future of the generation. Because if we grew up watching Channel Soen, Anderson Silva, also they got Chuck Liddell, Forrest Griffin at the early of the 2000 and 2010, they
Absolutely
got
legends. Yep.
absolutely legends. They have Nate Diaz, Nick Diaz, and right now for the early 2020, they just brought a lot of great competition with the brand new young players because we never expected about that because I have it on some live stream that I just really thought that it could might be like the last fight with John Jones after this fight is gonna be like the retirement, but I think it's gonna be like a give it opportunity to the young prospect, give it opportunity to the young mixed martial arts athletes to get involved with the grappling style, the knockout, and boom, there you go.
I mean, like that's absolutely fact. We have so much main events coming out, so much fights coming out. It is gonna be fire, man. It is gonna be fire to watch all these guys. That being said, though, like I did want to touch on. I know you probably have to bounce here in a second, but I did want to touch on if you did want to talk about. I don't know if you had a graphics if you was gonna go over UFC 296, but I don't know if you was or not. But if you wanted to, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, because the UFC 296. I mean, this is gonna be like the last thing that we're talking about because it's gonna be like the last topic that we're talking about it. But right now it
Got you. I'll
is,
let you go. My bad.
and right now it's gonna be like a really excited because it's gonna be like a great Christmas gift between one of the main events, and one of the main
Yes.
event is gonna be between Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Now you might be going wrong about it because it's gonna be like one of the most exciting fights when it comes to the end of the year. Not only they just got Alexander Pantoja versus Brandon Royal for the flyweight championship, but also they just got between Cody Garbrandt versus Ryan Kelly, Josh Emmett and Chica Checkett, Ian Gary versus Vicente Luque. I mean, this is gonna be like a really exciting and fun to watch because the last time that we just saw Kobe Convention, it's just like a few months ago, and I think this is like to be an opportunity to see the Kobe Convention get us all a title shot right now. But I mean, this is gonna be like a really excited to be the fight between Kobe Convention versus Leon Edwards because Leon Edwards is the reigning championship, but it's gonna be like the ball prediction. But I think this is gonna be like a really excited to see what they got because it all depends for the submissions, the knockouts, the grappling, and he feels like it bulking it up for everything. I mean, they have it at the top of the right now. It seems like everything could happen like this one. Everything could happen, and amount for everything that happened like this one because he's gonna be defendable right now. But I mean, it's gonna be like the taller for everything. I mean, the both two faces and Las Vegas in the T-Mobile Arena. But I had the comparison about it. So Edison Street, I just didn't convincing to stand up for the height. But he has fighted with the southpaw stance while competing in plus like more like the traditional stance. But I think the Leon Edwards is taking a lot of advantage when it comes to the grappling side because he's more like a more informed fighter with a tatted streak of 12 unbeaten fights. And Compete has lost of the 2-4 bouts of being in the fights against Kamaru Osman. But I think this gonna 100% is gonna expect to see the biggest challenge ever. It takes a lot of things. So any thoughts about Leon Rogers versus Colby Covington before we wrap this out?
Yeah, I'm super excited for this pay per view. Not slowly so much for Usman. Sorry, not Usman. Sorry, not so much for Leon
Leon
Edwards because
Covington.
I don't like Colby Covington. I just feel like he's catered in this point, and I don't like the fact that there's so much other competition for Edwards to fight. Now, I do love this little backstory that they have going on, and Edwards will probably win this one. Edwards is just looking at he's like at a whole different level right now. I don't think Colby is ready for this test. This is now Colby's, I believe, fourth or third title fight that he is gonna have. This is his third title fight. I don't think he deserves it. Honestly, man, this guy goes and wins a fight and then he just gets the title shot again. Like I don't understand it. But that is being said, Edwards is gonna win though. I'm more excited to see. To be honest, the fight I'm super excited to see is my guy Shakarat. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that right now, but my guy Shakarat Wakanoff. I'm slaughtering that, but versus Steven Thompson. I mean, like I've been following this guy. He's been undefeated for a while, and this guy never been to a decision. He is 17-0. I would get his name right if I wasn't on my medication. But that being said, Shakarat is probably gonna go to 18-0 because I don't think he has the I don't think Thompson. I do love Thompson. I'm a fan of Thompson. I follow him on YouTube. I love what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? I love the guy's movement. He is a great guy to watch, fun fighter to watch. But I think Rakhmonov is just going to be too much for him. I think Shakurat is just going to come in and is going to be a standout fighter. And the one thing I love about Shakurat is he doesn't rush to victory. He doesn't rush to finish. It just comes natural. People think that they can finish him. They think that they're going to rush him. And we've seen it against his last couple of fights. Neil Magny, Gulf Neil, like they basically tested him down to the wire and he was able to pull off the victory in the third round, yet to go to a decision. So Shakurat Rakhmonov, Damn, these UFC's names are so hard to pronounce, man. But shout outs to him and the Alexander versus Brandon Royval. Now a lot of people don't know who Brandon Royval is. I mean, like they should if they followed the sport, but a lot of casuals, the flyweight is not even the highest. It's just so hard being a flyweight fighter because like sometimes like they don't get the shine as these other divisions, whereas in the lightweight division is so loaded and the welterweight division is so loaded and these other divisions are so loaded. And when it gets to the flyweights, it's kind of like the women's divisions at times where you can just go on a short streak and then happily get the title shot. So a lot of casuals may not know who Brandon is, but Brandon is a guy. He's from the LFA. He's been fighting for a long time in the sense of he's one of those flyweight veterans, people would say. He had 7 fights in the UFC where he had 5 wins off of 2 losses. The 2 losses did come in his middle of his stint in the UFC career, so he is off of a 3-fight win streak. So that 3-fight win streak clearly got him the title shot. A lot of people had Brandon up next for the title shot, and the fact that the whole trilogy is done with Alex and Alexandra and what's his name? But homie, I can't even
Oh,
remember his
Holly
name.
Hall. Oh,
No, not Holly Holmes. I'm sorry. What is his name? Oh my god, it's lost me right now. But
okay, this could have been him.
Brandon. I'm sorry, Brandon. It is
Oh,
Brandon.
Brandon Owen.
Um,
Brandon.
yeah. So that being said,
No,
like
that's
I
Brandon
really
Royo. Brandon Royo. Yeah.
Brandon Moreno. Yeah, Brandon Moreno. My bad. But Doja clearly showed his dominance as being a veteran. A lot of people had Brandon Moreno winning that fight. I'm sorry for that loss of words right there, fam. But Brandon Moreno, a lot of people had him winning that fight, but Toja came in and he beat him. So that being said, I do have Alex staying as championship, beating Brandon Varel. So he's gonna probably remain championship. But as far as everything else, um, I'm pretty much happy that we did this, man. I'm happy that we got a chance to talk UFC. I would love to do this again sometimes. If you want to make it like a weekly or a monthly thing where we get on and we touch on all these main events, and obviously if you want to do prediction shows and stuff and recaps, I'm always down to do that. Thank you, man, so much for bringing me on your platform and doing this.
Yeah, that's exactly. And of course, we just wrapped it up because this is like UFC talk with El Capitan Rafucho and Science Zenith. Thank you, everybody, for much love in the comments and the chat right now. So make sure to subscribe to Science Zenith. He's right now, he's doing not
Appreciate
only
that.
with the gaming, also with the Giants, also with MMA, WWE, everything about the sports and entertainment. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Rafael Chacín, as known as El Capitan Rafucho, also providing with the Raiders, also wrestling, UFC, basketball, everything. So, yeah, like Science saying it, let's get it. And of course, it's been like an amazing episode. And this is UFC Talk with
Get
El
it.
Capitan Rafucho, with Science saying it. And David say, salute to everybody else. And of course, peace out and have a great night.